Welcome to Be in Tune. Join me, your host Darian, and my producer Joab, as we have conversations that deepen our connection with our higher power, ourselves, and the world around us. So, get ready to tune in, turn up that volume, and welcome to the Be in Tune podcast. No, it's real. I think a lot of Christian therapists, well, at least I would hope, right, actually do take that stance as well, right? You and I actually were asked that question. You and I did like a Q&A,
Yes.
and we were asked that question of like, being Christian therapists, how do you work with certain groups of people?
Mm-hmm.
And I think I literally responded not in a petty way. I wasn't trying to be petty in my communication, but I was like, what does that have to do with me? What does my faith have to do with their issues?
Yeah.
And like, if that starts to become a problem, then it's like, first of all, don't work with that person because you may end up causing more harm than any good. So
Yeah.
let's just be mindful of that. But it's like, how is it my outlook on the world? Like, you know what I mean? Like, if they're coming to me with their issues of like, let's say you just even like depression and anxiety, it's like, okay, let's talk about it. Let me be a space for you. And not only that, it's like, technically, wouldn't that be in our Christian duty to hold space for everyone?
True.
Isn't that kind of what we're like low-key called to do?
Mm-hmm. High key, I would say, but yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it is high key. It is high key for sure. I don't know why I said low key. It is high key. It is the highest of all keys. Like, so it's like I said okay, like I said okay, and Becky's like, okay, let me give a more like extensive answer. She's a better communicator between the two of us. That's what I like to say.
I can't.
We balance each other out. It works.
It really does. It really does. But no, it's like, yeah. When you step into my office, it's you and your concerns, and I need to know, first of all, I'm not being reckless and wanting to take on your issues and not have the skill sets to be able to do so. Nothing about my beliefs. It's just my genuine skill sets to do so. There's some groups of people I can't accept due to the intensity of their symptoms.
Yeah.
Because I'll say, I'm not the one. Yes. You need to go here. This isn't about me. This isn't about me not thinking I'm not capable. I don't have the proper resources to be an awesome assist for you. And I care more about your healing than anything.
Yeah.
Because many times, Beckey, we know the horror stories. We've heard of people taking on clients that they shouldn't have taken on in the sense of like, they didn't have the proper resources, they didn't have the proper skill sets, and that causes psychological harm.
Yes.
The person already has enough issues. Why are we doing that? Why are we adding to their problems?
Yes. And that's why I always say not all therapists are built the same, unfortunately, but we are not all the same. But I think it's sometimes too, that's hard. I think when we're, in school for counseling or social work or things like this, and we start getting into the field, sometimes just like they throw everyone at us, like we're just supposed to be able to work with everybody. So I think we stay in that mindset, as our career goes on, and think like, oh yeah, I can work with all types of things. But I think it's a strength to know what we can't and what we can take on. Like for myself, I know like serious mental illness, that is not something that I take on when it comes to my practice, because I know I don't have the skill set to help you navigate serious mental illness. I will help you find resources for that, but that's not something that I will take on myself when it comes to that aspect. So I think we have to realize, like, as a good therapist, you're not the perfect fit for everyone. So there's some things that you realize, yes, this is my niche. I know that I can help this person engage with them in this, and certain things. It's just like, like you said, I probably will do more harm than good. And that's a perfect time to realize this is not someone that I can take on when it comes to that. And some clients don't really understand that. And might think like, okay, I don't know why they like didn't want to work with me or things like that, but not realizing it probably wouldn't have been helpful for you in the long run if they don't have that skill set.
No, I'm glad that you said that. So, and notice, like, we didn't say anything about our beliefs coming into any of that. It was just, we were just like, I don't have the skill set. I don't got the resource.
Exactly. Yeah, most definitely.
So, you know, I asked you how you were doing. You're like, I'm doing. I'm okay. I'm doing great. I like how you mentioned that at one point you were like, when I realize I'm stressed and everything, right? Or I'm trying to fit some things within my control and I'm realizing that's outside of my control. So I'm better off just letting things go. You said that coloring was one of your things.
Oh yes, oh yes.
Tell me more, friend.
Oh
Tell
sure.
me. Like how excited! This is the most you've gotten excited. Like this is the most
Right.
excited you've gotten for a question.
I love coloring. If I had my whole little tote bag here, I would show y'all all my coloring books. So
I just want to know. Wait, hold on. I just want to know. Are you and your future children going to be like coloring together? Will you
I hope
be?
so. I really hope so. You hear that? I hope he hears this because we're gonna. He not my coloring book, so he'll have to get his own. But we will definitely.
Wow.
For those of you who don't know,
Look at him.
she's referring to her unborn child. She actually, Becky, I did say this, but you are with child, so congratulations. The horns again! Yay! That's exactly what happened in my mind when she told me. I was like, what?
Mm-hmm.
No, you don't
Well, you
understand.
told me.
I felt special when I was told because I was sent like a whole text, like a whole song. I said, that's a child. There is a baby there.
Yes.
Like,
That's cute.
I was like, this is exciting. So he'll have to have his own. I got it. Don't worry.
Yes.
For his birthday party, here's your own coloring books. And then here, mom, here's yours.
Yes, his own coloring books, some crayons, colored pencils, markers. I got my own. But I have so many coloring books. I think I don't know, just as a child, and so I am not like artistic by any means. I cannot draw or do any of that, but I could do some coloring. Like I can definitely color, and it's just so relaxing for me. I think it heals an inner child part of me or connects me back to that in some way. But it is just so relaxing for me to be able to do that. So I literally have like a little tote bag. I have some like scripture coloring books. I got some Black love couple coloring books. I have just random shapes coloring books. So I think it took me some time to realize like you can still make time for this. Because for a long time I was like, I don't have anything like hobbies or things like that. But then I realized I really enjoy coloring. So that's something that I invested, a lot of good crayons and things. Got all my supplies. So that's something that I try to do as much as possible. And I think what I mentioned too, like the reminders that I get from my husband, he's like, do you use a color? Like, would that be helpful for you? And I was like, you know what? It's been some time. I do need
At
some
least he
color.
knows. At least he knows.
He does. He does.
It's not him asking, do you need to color? Will that be helpful for you?
Yes.
I don't know why I find this hilarious. I do not know. Okay, I think I know why I find this hilarious. Hilarious in the sense, first of all, I love this for you. That's just was not something I would expect because you've mentioned this in the past, and I'm like, I would not expect that from you because I think because indeed how you present and how you are, you're very like detail oriented. You're all about like moving on to the next thing. I mean, for the love of goodness gracious, getting you to schedule a call with you sometimes. I'm like, check your busy schedule
I know.
and somehow pencil me in here. And you're like, okay, I'm being dramatic because she's like, I'm fine. I'm free after this time. And I'm like, okay, great. I'll take it. Right.
This is the easiest thing for us to book, I feel like. But yes.
Wow, that's crazy. That's actually revealing. Okay.
No, it is. Like it is revealing. But I just would not expect that to be like your thing. And first of all, me asking about it, just seeing how excited you got,
Oh, I
friend.
love it.
Like
I
you
love
got
it.
real hyped.
Yes, read my coloring. What? Yes, we're like PB and J. Like we're meant to be together. I love it.
I'm crying. I get it though. I get it. As a painter, I get it. I get it.
Yes, Joab is an artist. He actually paints.
Oh wow!
Mhm.
See, I need to get to your level. Not there yet,
Whoa.
but someday.
Okay. I appreciate that.
You
But
can
I get it,
actually,
though.
you could get to his level. You can do paint by numbers.
Mm-hmm.
I did that
That's what I do.
electronically. Never in person though, like in real life. My niece, after my surgery, she knows all to color, and she was like, "Oh, well, if you can't get up in color, you can use this app." I was like, "I love you," like, and I did it as I was recovering. It was great. So yeah.
Yeah. No, it's like something else for you to consider. But it makes sense though that this would be your thing because it's the opposite, I would say, of like I said, how you present, how your mind works, right?
Mm,
With coloring, right? Or doing anything in the artistic realm, right? It does require that level of letting go and going with the
mm,
flow.
yeah,
Like when you're doing
absolutely.
art, you there's like as much as we try to like structure up or puts like a level of perfectionism into it, right?
Mm,
Ultimately, the best art
Mm,
pieces came from like mistakes.
true.
Believe it or not, they
Very
came
true.
from mistakes. They came from like a passionate moment, a heated moment, a moment or an emotion where that person was experiencing such high intensity of it, and bam, what we consider the greatest art pieces of all time are just like, yeah, that wasn't really planned. So I just love that for you. It's unexpected, and at the same time, I'm like, oh, but it does make sense. This complete opposite thing of what she typically does would
yes.
be the thing to get her to relax. And I think
Mm,
there's something to be said about that,
Yeah,
right? And hence, I think that's why we teach mindfulness a lot in our field, right? Because we're encouraging
absolutely.
folks, especially in this part of the world, and right, and where we're located and everything, to like learn how to slow down,
Yes.
do the
yep.
opposite of what it is that you typically do. It can be
Mm,
hard. So let's touch on the cultural piece here now. Let's touch on the cultural piece because you mentioned earlier that, you know, culture, right, definitely comes into play of people having like a certain stigma and stereotype. And we talked about that in our last episode with you. And I want
Mm-hmm.
you to expand on that more. You talked about it from your own perspective when you decided to become a therapist. And your dad to this day is still asking you, are you going to become a doctor?
yeah, he'll figure it out at some point.
I just love the look. I love the look. I love the whole I am not going to like I got nothing else.
No, I
Right?
literally don't.
Fair.
Well, we're not going to talk about that further, girl, because it's okay. But just that just is it's so funny. It was just Joe, did you see her face? Like,
Uh, uh, she was like, it's not my problem.
Oh my goodness.
but that just speaks to like, right? Like, of course, growing up in a Caribbean household, right? Having that culture, right? Being Haitian American, having all of that influence, right? I would speaks to like even like the the desires, right? The jobs or the fields that we could study, right? It
Yeah,
definitely that touched and played a role,
Mm,
right, in our lives. But now I can only imagine you coloring how that may come like the cultural perspective on that. First of all, I'm curious to know, right? And then not only that, I asked that on a personal level, but then on the professional level, how are you seeing culture come into play in therapy?
yeah, yeah. So first, the personal level, yeah, it is seen as very childish to be coloring. Like I remember literally one time, sorry, just side tangent, but I remember one time
Let your feelings out. Let your feelings
when
right.
I
out.
got to church. I don't know if you remember when we used to have, like, they had little coloring things for the kids where they colored the
Yes.
sanctuary. Yes, so I did not take one for
Yeah.
myself, y'all, but my niece.
Wait. Hold up. Hold up. You took one of the kids'
No,
like
no,
coloring.
I did not. I did not.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But my niece, a
Oh my
child,
god.
she wants to color. So I was like, yeah. So we colored together. I remember all just looking at me like, girl, don't judge me right now. Like this was just so relaxing for me. So yes, it is seen as very childish. But I think also it's just
Hold up, Becky. You missed the Joab's. Oh my god.
Slightly, just a slight judgment. I'm just slight judgment there. Just
You're
slight. I see
judging her?
why.
Oh my gosh, Joab, you're judging her? Yeah, I was gonna tell her this is a safe space. We don't judge her. I guess I'm the safe space. Joab,
How you
boy.
taking the How you taking the coloring books from the kids?
no, 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 no. She was a child. I
Her
was
niece.
coloring with
Her
her.
niece.
My
Her
niece
needs
wanted the
to.
I'm
yes,
sorry.
yes,
My
yes.
bad. My
No,
bad. My
I
bad.
did
My
not
bad.
take
My
my
bad.
own. That'll be a little much.
Okay.
But
Now she brings her own. Get it right, Joab. Stay with
My
the
bad. My
story.
bad. My
Now
bad. My
she
bad.
brings her own.
not gonna lie, sometimes I do. Not gonna lie. But I'm visiting church for the first time. I'm like, let me not, y'all don't know me like that. But but I love it though. It
Oh
definitely
my
helps
gosh, my
me. But
cheekbones.
I think it's just also too, just like to the cultural aspect. I think they're not thinking about mindfulness. They're not thinking about what's trying to
No.
relax you. They're just
No.
like, this looks weird. Why are you doing this? You're too grown to be doing this. How are other people going to view what you're doing? Like, that's more of the focus when it comes up, and not realizing, like, this is helpful to you. Like, you seem more relaxed, like, and things like that. So I think in that area with the whole culture piece, how they view it. But then I think you asked, how does culture, ask me one more time, the second part.
No problem.
I want to make
No
sure.
problem. I was well, actually, hold on. Before I do elaborate on that, right? Let's go a little bit further into that you're saying. They don't believe in mindfulness. They don't
Mhm.
see, or maybe more importantly, they don't see the relevance of mindfulness.
Yeah.
How is this going to get your bills paid? How is this going to get you to get up in the morning and do what you have to go do?
Yeah.
How is this going to get you to be, I mean, you're going to be a mom soon. How is this going to get you to be a very good mom?
Yeah.
How is this going to get you to be a very good wife? How is this going to get you to be a very good worker, big successful business owner for your father? How is this going to get you to eventually be the doctor that I'm still asking you to be? All right, that was the slight shade there. I'm done. Joe, we can edit that part out. But and you know what? I think it's not just specifically with your culture, right? The Haitian American culture. I think it's a good question in general that even in this American culture could ask, like, how on earth is just doing some of these therapeutic skills that you're talking about? How is it relevant? How would it be helpful?
Yeah.
Is this you not knowing how to just take it on the chin and keep moving, right? Or just bucko, right? And keep it going? Or are you being too soft, right? And then now bringing in that Haitian American piece, you're being too American. Are you being too soft?
Yes, that that the reason why I chuckle because my comment with my
Let's
sister.
talk about it. This is
real.
important right here. This is
It's
right
real.
here. Let's talk about
Yeah,
it.
I think because I was talking to my sister today when I mentioned my sister never have, it's always deep conversations. They're never light. So we're always talking about.
Beckey's like, I just want you to ask me about the weather. Just ask me about the weather.
But I love
There's a whole Kendrick Lamar concert happening, and a football game is going to be happening along with that.
Crying.
Yes.
It's because my teams are not even playing. But you know what? Congratulations to the teams that are. Let me not be a bitter Betty. So
it's the yearly concert I attend. The games, I don't know, but but no, because I was talking to her today around that aspect when it just comes to, I think, just culture and how, like, at least, I can speak for Haitian culture that I've experienced. But I think a lot of times things that we see, we were talking about it in the aspect of relationships, how a lot of times we notice culturally, like, they don't always look happy, when it comes to the relationship piece. And not everyone, but a lot of the ones that we've experienced, it's like, why don't they look happy? Why do they look so miserable? Or things like that. And we're talking about the aspects of how we as a culture, if we just always did things because that's how we do them, so we continue to do them, we struggle, I think, when it comes to change or adding in something different. Because it's just like, oh, this is foreign. Like, we don't do this. Like, this is not what we do, but not realizing what we do hasn't been working. Like, it hasn't been helpful for us. But I think even if it's hard or if it's a struggle or if it seems to make life more difficult, but it's just like, this is what we do. So we just continue to do it. So I think it's like, as a people, we struggle, I think, when it comes to transition or trying new things. So when it comes to some of these aspects, it's just like, okay, well, I never did that and I was fine. And, I was able to get through life and do all these things. And it's like, yes, you are very resilient, but there are some things that you could have done that could have, like, helped how you were showing up in those spaces as you were doing those things. And I think sometimes we don't think about just like, okay, well, I did X, Y, and Z and you're here and I'm here, so we're good. So I think sometimes when it comes to that piece, it's not realizing, but like what it looked like at those times in those different spaces, it could have been different. if we do something differently. But I think we struggle a lot with the new things and transitioning to those things, which I've seen in like whether it has to do with like mental health or like I've had experience with like Haitian churches, things like that. I think that piece is hard because there is so much healing I think that can be done. And we could be happier, we could be, more present in certain aspects. I think if we realize like it's okay to do these things. It's different, but doesn't mean it's bad just because it's different.
But
Mm.
that's a word right there. We could be happier or
Mm,
more present in life
yeah.
if we learned how to maybe make the necessary changes. And I thank you first of all for just speaking specifically on like your culture, right? And this is in no shape or form of you trying to call out your culture,
Mhm,
right? This is just, I mean, in a sense, you're just you're highlighting something that you have always witnessed and observed, and I think there, I I think I could speak for. I mean, I'm not part of the culture, but I could still speak for some and say, oh, they appreciate it because maybe this is the same thing that they have been observing,
yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And the same questions that they are asking themselves, right?
Yeah.
And that piece right there of learning how to pivot,
Mm,
learning how to do things differently, right? Learning how to try something new.
mhm,
Is it indeed a waste of your time, right? Or can it genuinely create a different result for you? Can it create a new way of you being and living?
yeah. Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we ask ourselves that question enough. My culture is very, very similar, right?
Mm,
Um, there's just some things that are just done because it's always been done this way, or we don't think of being very innovative, right? And embracing maybe that new way of doing things because we think it's going to somehow dismantle our traditions, our identity,
mm,
and
Mm-hmm.
such, and who we are as a people. So,
yeah.
and it's like, no, it can, if anything, it can enhance. That's what you're trying to say. It can enhance.
Yes, yes.
It can showcase something different because um being Dominican, y'all being Haitian, right? Like our cultures, there's beauty in our cultures, right? We could talk
Mm-hmm.
about, I think we could spend the next 5 hours talking about the greatness of our cultures, right? And the food. I could spend a good time alone on the food, right? You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? Um and that being said, you know, what more can we see can be done?
Mm,
What can enhance how our lives, and what can create such sweeter relationships, sweeter experiences,
yeah,
make us even more resilient. We're resilient people, right? But
absolutely.
what can make us even
Yeah.
more resilient? Have we ever thought about that? Have we ever
Mm,
thought about being more resilient? I mean, I get it though that there's some groups too. I've heard this. One comedian said, "I'm tired of being strong. Like I'm tired. I am
yeah,
tired of it." I'm like, "That's fair. That's real.
It's
That's
fair.
real."
yeah, yeah.
I felt
Yeah.
that. Like when she said that, I was like, "Oh, say it again." Like I am tired, right?
Mhm,
And the word resilient is to be able to, by definition, it's about learning how to endure that, endure
mhm,
a struggle, a suffering
Mm-hmm.
better, right? So,
exactly.
how can you, because life is always going to be lifing, we're always going to be suffering with
Mhm,
something, something's always going to come about. How are we practicing that distress tolerance, right? Are we doing the same old thing? Do we have to do the same old thing?
Mm-hmm.
Or can we actually be open to the possibility of doing something, making a change, doing something different in our lives,
yeah.
because maybe we can get a different result. Is that too
Yeah.
existential? Are y'all catching what I'm saying?
Yeah,
No, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I even just think, again, like change in itself is just uncomfortable.
mhm,
So I'm really
Hmm.
wondering how much of that is really attributed to just the uncomfortability of trying something new, the uncomfortability
Mm.
of like branching away from what, has been passed down generation to generation, traditions after traditions, like for years, like, and trying something new. Or like you were saying, like a more enhanced version of that. Because I can see that could be uncomfortable, like again straying from like what past generations have done. But like yeah, like Becky, you like, put like a good question, like, or a good thought, like a lot of relationships in especially like the Haitian like community, like it does kind of seem like that, like, but
Mm.
why is that, and why has that been a thing like throughout like the generations. But I could say that could also go for like other communities, maybe in like a different way or like a different dynamic.
Yeah.
But like again, it's like the generational trauma that gets passed down. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it even comes back to like how when we started, we were talking about just like the trauma piece and what that's defined as. But I think again, just and then it's for a lot of communities, but trying to generalize. So what I've experienced with like some Haitian communities is just the aspect of like the trauma, not realizing that like some of those things that we had to be resilient for and had to experience, that is trauma. Like, but I think a lot of times we don't name it or don't accept it, because then that mean like, what does that mean for me if I say that I've experienced trauma? But then not realizing like you're acting from a trauma response though because of that. So I think that's a piece too.
Mm,
You feel like I have to do it this way because at some point, yeah, you did have to do it this way because of what your circumstances are, but realizing we're not there anymore. So we don't have to
mm,
respond in that way. But I think it's so hard for like us as a people to acknowledge like, yes, this was traumatic. Like, yes, this was hard. And it is still impacting me in this way and how I'm viewing all these different aspects of life.
Do you think that
uh,
someone would never want to admit that they went through trauma or were a victim of a trauma because of that they don't want to be viewed as a victim?
Absolutely.
mm,
Absolutely. Yeah, most definitely. I think I've definitely seen that a lot. And I think sometimes too, it's like, yes, the victim piece, and it's like that they might feel like that means I'm weak, but not realizing like it doesn't mean that you're weak. Like, yes, this horrible thing happened, but how you were able to get through it shows the strength when it comes
Mhm.
to that. But then also realizing once we acknowledge that and we're able to like process that and work through that, then you can let go of it. Like you don't have to carry that around. That's not to impact your view of everything that you're doing. But yeah, most definitely. I think it's that piece and not wanting to be seen a certain way.
But I'm gonna play a little bit of the devil's advocate here, or play not devil's advocate, play the side of the person that would challenge this, right?
Yeah,
And when you
yeah.
say vulnerability, you're telling me to be vulnerable. I don't have time to be weak.
Mm,
How would you respond to that?
and I've heard that.
I saw a flash in your eyes go like I think you got transported for a
I
second
have a
to a memory.
flashback. But no, I've heard that so many times in so many different ways. Like I don't have time to be legal. I don't have time to think of my mental health. Or if I thought about this, then I wouldn't be able to do X, Y, and Z. But it's just realizing like how much time do you think that's going to take? Or what do you think that's actually going to look like? 'Cause I think sometimes, and also like, what is your mind's going to tell you happens if you do that? Because sometimes, people can have this like worst case scenario thinking that like, okay, I've held this in for so long. If I let it out, I don't know how I don't know how I'm gonna react. I don't know how I'm gonna handle this. So I think it's also
Mhm.
the fear of like what comes with that if I go ahead and do that. But I think it's delicate because I think a lot of times when we are talking to people who have experienced some of these things, it's so deeply rooted. So a lot of times too, we are going to be met with defensiveness, in the beginning. But I think for me, what I try to do is kind of start with just like educating, like just trying to see like this is not me trying to downplay anything that you've been through, when it comes to that, but also trying to, help you to realize there is something else to try. Like, okay, we've tried this way for all this time, but it's still hard. So like, why not try something else? Or just see what happens. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. We don't have to do it again. But at least just trying it out to see like, can it be different? So I think a lot of times it's that fear of like, how am I going to handle this if it happens? But also recognizing, like, on our end, if we're the helping professional with those people, that it's not going to be an easy thing that just happens so quickly because it's deeply rooted.
Mhm. So then this whole being vulnerable piece, right? Or
Mm,
trying something different, right? How would that look? Because I don't have time for it. I don't, you know what I mean? And also it's not gonna happen very quickly. And I want some immediate change.
mm,
yeah, yeah, no, that is hard when it comes to that piece because it's literally not going to happen quickly. But I think it's being able to also see, okay, what are you willing to do. Like maybe it's not that I'm going to go be vulnerable and talk to a therapist about all of these things, but maybe it is just like utilizing my support systems a little more, like not feeling like I'm isolated when unintentionally I'm isolating myself when I have all these people who want to help me, or want to be there for me. So maybe that's a first step. Like just utilize those supports a little bit more. Like maybe it's just like having quick check-in conversations or just seeing how they're doing. Start rebuilding some of those relationships so that you realize you do have a community that you can count on and reach out to. So I think it really, is different, I think, for a lot of different situations. But I think it's starting super small. See, okay, this is where we eventually want to get to, but realizing it's probably gonna take some time. So we gotta take super baby steps to try to get ourselves there. I think also too, when it comes to that, the resistance to like the vulnerability, I think is also acknowledging like, again, with the trauma piece, something probably got them there, to feel like it's not safe to do that or to be vulnerable or show these emotions. So realizing they're going to have to gain some of that evidence that shows it's okay to do this and nothing horrible is going to happen. I'm not going to be seen in any negative way. So I think starting small like that,
Mm.
they're gaining more of that evidence and hopefully they're willing to go a little bit further to try some more things.
Joab, do you have a question? Because I see your brain kind of
Oh,
moving there.
I was just thinking in my head, like, that's like really good because like I feel like it's a good way to kind of, again, like the misconceptions, kind of like a good way to kind of, I guess, like change like that perspective. Like that's where it starts.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you could at least start there, because like I get it, like a lot of people could be skeptical of like, or not even just skeptical, like just they want like to see it happen now. They don't want to invest the time to like wait, X amount of years to like be or go through the process. They want to see like the changes happen now. But I think that's a good like way to really just, again, change like maybe that perspective, or what are some other ways like we can kind of, again, like pivot like what your initial expectations were and like kind of work around it to kind of get back to where it's working out for you. I think that's really good because I feel like, again, like a better, like, I mean, I'm not a therapist, but I'm pretty sure you could say like that's kind of like a great way to kind of like frame or package the the mental health like practice or just therapy in general to make it more like it's receivable or acceptable for the person like who needs it. But yeah, I was just thinking like, yeah, that's actually like a really good way to kind of like frame it, like really beneficial way to do that. But
Yeah. Well, go
if
ahead.
I might have to pivot this because there was one thing that you were saying. I mean, I know we're talking about like in the Haitian American space, but we were saying in the very, very beginning of the episode about like a lot of like the political and like social stressors.
I'm glad you're going to ask the question because I was like, I hope this question gets asked. So go ahead.
I was thinking about it. I'm just like, do I like, it was kind of tugging on me, but I'll be honest, like, again, like with like everything that's going on with like the political and social spaces, like specifically for, in our community, like, and I guess Caribbean communities in general, or just like communities, or let's just like keep it like, I guess in simple terms, like the immigrant community. How has that, like this, like the stresses of like the political and like the social stressors, like how has that really showed up in like some of your clients, or maybe just like things you've seen, like mental health wise, like how has that kind of played a role? Because like with like the new like policies and like a lot of like immigrations kind of like being overturned, like how is that kind of like playing out that you've seen?
That's a good question. That's a really good question. And so I'm trying to think of like, because it's been a lot of conversations around this with clients. And I know this question you're asking in particular for clients of immigrant backgrounds, but I feel like what I've experienced has been opposite. Because the clients that I do have immigrant backgrounds, I feel like I haven't, not that they're not experiencing these things. I'm sure they are to some extent, but more of the clients that like I've had these conversations with are those who are not of immigrant backgrounds, that are, very troubled by a lot of these things. Like there's a lot of stress, a lot of uncertainty, around some of those aspects, whether it is people that they know or just kind of realizing like this is not okay, when some of these things are happening. So the majority of conversations I've had have been with clients who are not of immigrant backgrounds, that have been bringing it up to a lot of that stress, anxiety, that fear. I've heard the word fear a lot from clients around this piece. with a lot of these changes that are happening. And I did kind of question, like, oh, that's interesting that like some of the clients of immigrant backgrounds are not the ones who are stating these things. And then I wonder too if it's even what we were talking about before, how it's just like you just kind of learn to just get through these things. Like you just kind of do what you have to do and get through
Mm,
them. So I'm wondering if that's even what it is, where it's like maybe not taking a moment to think about those things, or just realizing, okay, I have other things I have to do, or like maybe this is not the first time they found themselves in some of these spaces too, when it comes to that piece. But yeah, I think I've seen a lot of the anxiety, stress, the uncertainty around that piece. And I think what we've been kind of working on and talking about, I think for some clients, who are not people of color, is also like them acknowledging like their privilege, and how a lot of times like that's going to impact them and how they're seeing these situations differently, but also seeing what is in their control that they can do. But I think it's also kind of having that balance of there are some things, unfortunately, that are not. And I think with just around this time as well is just also getting clients to realize, kind of grounding themselves and like what is still true for me right now. Like where I'm
Mm.
at in my state, like what are some things that are still true, and grounding myself in that. Because it is hard when there's so many things that are done and
mhm,
changing so quickly and we don't have answers, like the what ifs, super anxiety trigger when it comes to that
Mhm.
piece. So I think it's
Mhm.
realizing like what is still true for me, like for me to ground myself in. So I think that's something that I've been doing a lot with clients, is that aspect, to be able to realize, okay, yes, I am hearing a lot of this noise, but like what actually happened, and then also getting them to realize like what's the worst case scenario my mind is telling me. How realistic is that, and if it does happen, what is still in my control to do to navigate that. So I think it's trying to like lessen that and realize you still have resources, you still have supports, there are still
mhm,
things that you can do to help yourself right now in the situation. So I think it's definitely hard because I can't tell them this is not going to happen, or things like that, because like again, a lot of what ifs. I don't know what's going to happen, but I think it's just going back to like what is still true for us right now, and that's what we just have to be able to ground ourselves in.
I love that. Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm. I was just thinking, I was like, do I want to add on to that? But I just, first of all, I just love everything that you said. I was like, right on.
Mm,
But it does go back to what you even said about like what's within my control and
hmm
what's outside of my
Mhm,
control,
Yeah.
right? Because you talked about that on the personal level, like how you had to learn how to ask yourself that question constantly and call yourself out when you're trying to control the thing that's outside of your control.
Yes. Yes.
And with so many changes that are being made, right, or attempted to be made, right, there aren't any answers on anything.
Mm-hmm.
Like nothing's
mhm,
clear, nothing's clear and concise, nothing is defined, nothing is. And talk about that being so anxiety provoking, and talk about having someone to say this is outside of my control and I hate it,
Yeah.
because it could be so simple if I just knew what's up, right? So therefore I can properly plan. And for um the immigrant community, like that is just I can only imagine being in that constant state,
Yeah.
right? Of just like worry, like what is going to happen? What is going to happen? What is going to happen? How do I handle this? How do I protect myself in this? How do I make sure I have the right paperwork aligned? How do I make sure that I have everything provided for? Um, with certain changes that are being happened on the federal level, like people in other jobs are being asked questions of people, especially in their immigrant community. Like, how does this affect, like, for example, like, I know the Department of Education is being talked about and some would say targeted,
mhm,
right? And Head Start is part of that. Head Start, which is the daycare
Mm,
for little babies, right? It's
wow.
yeah. And so at least here in Mass, right? So that's being talked about. Like, and a friend of mine was just asked that question by a concerned parent, like, am I not going to have proper daycare now or affordable daycare for my kid?
yeah.
Talk about that being so anxiety provoking, because it's like, how does that household
Mhm,
plan
Hmm.
for a major financial hit of just child labor?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, child labor, child care. Nope, not a
not
Freudian
child
slip.
labor.
Not child labor. We are so against that. But child care, the labor of child care.
Mhm,
There we go.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So, like, how, like, ow. And my friend was like, that is a good question. Let me ask. And asking the higher ups, they're like, we have no idea. Maybe start planning for the worse,
Mm.
right? So that's something you can do. That's something within your control,
Mm.
right? So yeah, there isn't a really like an immediate answer there. And Becky, nice job in attempting to answer that and say that. Like
Yeah.
give your answer, to give the answer that you gave. But it is that reminder of like what's within your control and what's
Mhm.
outside of it.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
What can you genuinely plan for right now, and what is outside of your plan,
Yeah.
and learning how to be okay with that.
That's the hard part.
I make that face because I'm like, yikes, that's a hard one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, man, this conversation got deep, Joab.
The whole way was stern. It's just stern.
Is that? But that question was just like,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's unfortunate, but this is the reality that we are living.
Mhm.
This
Yeah.
is the
Mm-hmm.
reality that we are living, and that I love that that question was asked, but it just also shows the concern and the care that we have for others, and that is my beef with society today.
Mm.
Do we care about others?
Mm-hmm.
That is that is a good question. And I think, just the political climate, I think, is something that I think brings up that question a lot. Like, do we care about others? And I think it's hard. Again, conversations that I've had with clients and things that they're struggling with. Because I think it's just like you can have people on like either end of the spectrum when it comes to whoever they decide to vote for, things like that. And a lot
Yeah.
of times that is something that for people make or breaks relationships when it comes to that
Mm-hmm.
aspect, or it's just like, okay, we can't talk anymore when it comes to that. But I think it's hard. At least for me, it's just like I understand that like some of these things that maybe you believe, I don't believe them. But I think it's also the aspect that we should still be able to live life with people who have different beliefs than us. And I think that's hard on
Yes.
no matter where you fall on the spectrum. I think people from all ends of that, struggle with that piece. But it's just like we should still be able to. We should still be able to be respectful. We should still be able to have conversations. Like just because, like, yeah, I don't agree with what you're saying, and you might not agree with what I'm saying, and that's okay. To each their own. But we should still be able to coexist together.
Mm,
Absolutely.
that is just uh, it made me think about what you just said. Like, you're a Christian therapist. You don't advertise as a Christian therapist because you want it to be known that anyone is welcome into your space, whether you can agree with them on a system or not, right? Your mentality is still I'm gonna hold space for you. I'm
Absolutely.
gonna first of all see if I can genuinely work with you, right? If I
Mhm.
have the right skill sets to do so. And not only that, hold the space for you because you're a person.
Mhm.
And that's why I said I have my beef with society nowadays. And you're right. The political climate definitely pushes that question a lot, right? Like, are we caring for one another? We do not have to agree on who we voted for. We do not have to agree on how you think politically the country needs to be run.
Mhm.
And at the same time, like, can we just like hold space for one another? Can we just recognize that this is another human that
Mhm.
we're dealing with, that we're talking to,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
right? And families have separated because of that. Because I don't know. I have so much to say to that, and I'm trying to be careful here because I can be a little reckless with my words. But the question that I think I want to ask is like, is that a sword, or is that the hill that you're willing to die on, as opposed to giving the respect and hopefully receiving the respect of just being a person with your own opinion and thoughts?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, how bad are you willing to die on that hill, as opposed to actually just be like, all right, agree to disagree, have my
Mhm.
appropriate boundaries. You have your boundaries, right?
Yeah.
Can we still catch this concert that's happening later with a football game in between? Like, do you want chicken on your side of the pizza and I can have pineapple on mine? Like, can that still be a thing?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm asking the question humorously, but I hope my question is making sense. It's like, that's the question I just want to ask. Like, is this hill worth dying on?
Mm.
Right.
As opposed to really learning how to just take the space
Mhm.
and be in the space.
Yeah.
And it doesn't, and I'm talking to all sides,
Yes.
all opinions, all points of views, all beliefs,
Mhm.
right? As opposed to just saying we can agree to disagree. What is the commonality that we do have? I think it was Trevor Noah who did an interview with Kelly Clarkson, and she applauded him for his ability to be able to see, to always hold space for the two sides. And he said, because you can always find a commonality between the two.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys ever heard him talk or ever heard like his jokes and all that, but
Mhm.
it's always like a perspective that's a very well balanced perspective. He's never picking one side or the other. He's genuinely learning how to sit and understand where
Mhm.
another person is coming from.
Mm.
And I just really admire that skill set. So that's why I'm asking. I'm like, would you rather die on this hill for this particular point of view and belief in system and all of that and stay there?
Mhm.
And
Mm.
let me know how life's going for you on that. Or would you rather take, yes, what would be considered the road less traveled
Yeah.
and maybe obtain a more, I don't know, balanced and enhance and grow as a human to learn how to hold space for someone else?
Yeah, no, that's a deep question. It really is. And it makes me think of, so again, the conversations I've been having with clients where it's just like, we've been working on that because that is hard. And I think again, where social
It
media
is.
has its pros and cons, but I think social media makes it seem like, oh
Yeah.
no, if you have a different belief, cut them off. Like this, like you can't have conversations. You shouldn't engage in any type of way when it comes to someone who has a different belief than yours. But that I think that personally, I think that can be very problematic. So it has been a lot of, conversations around like, okay, what are some boundaries that you set then? Like if you do realize, because especially when it's like family members, that's hard. Like this person has been like your sibling, your parents, your, whoever for like your whole life. So it might not be realistic to cut this, to just cut this person off. So being able to see them, what does that mean for boundaries? Maybe is there things that we just agree to like not talk about? If it is going to get too heated for us, but then what are some reasons, that this person is still valuable to you, to have them in your life if it is in that aspect. But I think even for myself, when I think like the street that I live on, pretty sure many people have very different beliefs on my street. But like at the end of the day, when we're taking our walks and doing things like that, I'm still saying hi to everyone because you still deserve that. You're still a human, at the end of the day. Like those things we might not agree on them, but like you haven't done anything to me. You've always been kind to me. So like there's no reason for me to not be kind to you. And I think it's hard when it comes to that piece because it's just like there are some things that like really do hit home and like really impact people's experiences or traumatic
Right.
experience and things like that. So I don't want
Right.
to invalidate that piece like, oh, just don't think about that and things like that. But it's just being able to realize like, yes, maybe you don't have to be best friends with this person. But how do we still survive? How can we still be cordial? And realizing just like matching energy never really helped anything, so that piece is not going to help or be productive. So I think, but just realizing in society, like I think that's sometimes where it's like we struggle not realizing that we need each other, to make this thing work, this life thing work.
Yeah.
So I think it's acknowledging that piece, no matter where you come from, what level of education, all of those things, like everybody has a place. Like we need each other to make this work. So I think at the end of the day, kind of recognizing that and realizing like, okay, so we do kind of need to learn how to live together.
You're so wise, friend. You're so wise.
Away with words.
She does have a way with her. It's all the coloring that she does.
I'm telling
I
you,
know, right?
it is.
Okay, I believe you. Trust me, I believe you.
Dang, I know we both were like, did you see it's always passionate around coloring.
I love it. After
Mhm.
this, I'm about to color if I watch that concert because
I love how we are just acknowledging the concert and not so much the game. I just want to say
that's what it
that.
is for me. You're the concert, I'm sure they do their thing out there. But,
It's like my attitude is like, go team.
Oh
Who are you
gosh.
going for? Well, but my team will not make it for a good minute to the Super Bowl. So I'm like,
Who's your
okay,
team?
the Patriots.
Maybe. I mean, you have much better odds than Giants and Jets. So
Listen, I don't ever want to hear about the Giants. I'm going to state that and on a hot mic. All right.
whoa.
Someone's like, Becky's like, someone needs to color. Yeah, Becky. Actually, I'll come over, Becky, one day and we could just color if that'd be
I
fine
am
with
Oh,
you.
down.
I would
a
enjoy
color
that.
date.
She's like, this will be the best thing ever.
It literally would.
I actually, this is a scenario I would love. I want to be able to come over, right? Well, first of all, I would love to come over just to see your place because I don't think I've ever seen it before,
Never.
and I'm like, it'll happen one day.
Well, I believe it.
But after, like, even after baby's born, I want to be able to carry baby in one arm and be coloring. Well, actually, we have to be this way because I'm left-handed. So,
Yes,
that's what I
that means
want.
you got to come and practice. I believe it. It can happen.
I love it. I just want to be able to be like, you're so freaking cute. You're so amazing. Talking to the baby in Spanish and just be coloring meanwhile you and I are just like talking about the world. Like that's the scenario that I want. Like
Perfect
that's
scenario.
what I would love.
Perfect. I love it.
Yeah. I could already see it as I'm holding your child. You're like, I have this coloring book. I have this one.
Well, I
I
would
have
like
this one.
to show you all of them.
All after aside. This was really good, Becky. This was really good. I think this was a much needed conversation because we went all over the place. I know I had this is hilarious. I'm going to call this out. I had my questions. I had my questions that I wanted to ask you. And then here comes someone else to be like, and here are my questions. And I said, oh, we're adding? We're adding?
Listen, I had to. Guilty. I'm guilty.
It's okay. Listen, I love it. Not all our questions were asked, but I think we touched on all of the themes of our questions. And like, I want to end with this final question, and it's a quick one. And then we're gonna do something a little different too that we do in our episodes. You'll see. But my question is for you, ma'am. What is the encouragement that you want to give to folks right now? You're on quote unquote a hot mic, right? You are in the mental health field. You are an amazing, empathetic human being because you care about people. I think I talked about that the last time you were here, that you're all about community, right? So what is the encouragement that you would love to give to folks right now?
That is a good question.
I know it wasn't on the list of questions. I apologize.
I wasn't prepared. But no, that's fine. But no, I think two things come to mind. And I think they both work well together. But I think the first one is show yourself grace, because I think a lot of times we are extremely hard on ourselves and we're already living in a tough world. So I don't think we need that extra layer, to be hard on ourselves. So I think show yourself grace. And I think knowing it's okay to take care of yourself. I think sometimes we feel like we need permission to be able to do that, kind of knowing that it's okay to do that. Listen to your body, being able to know when my body is telling me like it's enough. In self-care, I think a lot of times to think about it is like, I gotta go to a spa or get my nails done or things like that. But maybe it's just like having a regular eating routine, like making sure I'm fueling my body. Like, did I drink any water today? Am I hydrating myself? Like some of those basic self-care things, if we're not doing them, can just make life so much harder or feel so much harder to get through things that we have to do. So I would say both of those things. Show yourself grace and like know it's okay to take care of yourself. It doesn't always have to be a big thing that you're doing to take care of yourself as well.
So therefore, I say the same thing right back at you, friend.
Yes.
Great piece of advice. And I know very well we're very good at giving advice. And I know that at times we are a little stubborn in taking on our own advice. So
true.
I love this. Thank you for coming on. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you for having me. This has been awesome.
I love it. And I love how I kept asking him, like, are you good? Like, do you need anything? You're like, no, I'm having, you look like you were having a great, grand old time. You're like,
I love talking to y'all. This is great.
Right now, we want to highlight, we have a little new thing that we do in our segments now, in our episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, first of all, I forgot to say who sponsored this episode. I can't say with a serious face, Becky.
One of these days you will.
One of these days. But I like to say that this episode of the Bean 2 podcast was sponsored by Imperfectly Tuned Counseling. Like, that's what I want to say. I can't take myself serious. This is. But yes, it's true. I'm perfectly tuned. Shouting out my therapy practice. So love it, right? But we also are doing something new too, which is we are highlighting. We're doing a promo of the week, and we highlight a member of our community. So the member of the community that we are highlighting is Row in the Right Direction. So
Mhm.
go ahead, take a moment, plug it in.
Thank you. But I mean, we are, well, this is my practice. It's my baby before, my other baby. But we are, can't take myself serious.
I know you can't take your own self serious, right? Isn't it
I know, right?
hilarious? It brings on the giggles. That's what it is.
But yes, so no, this is my practice. We are a team of 4 therapists right now, and we do have a diversified group, both diverse in terms of backgrounds, how they identify the populations that they work with, and it's an amazing group of therapists. I think we have, and we will continue to grow. But even just the team that we have right now, I think we have somebody that can work with most. There is someone that can work with most groups. So I would definitely say check out rowintherightdirection.org, and all our information is there. I'm gonna hear that in my head now all the time. I love it.
Job has a lot of fun with the buttons, like a lot of fun.
I definitely do.
And thank goodness I don't have that control, because I would just be pressing everything. Like just saying that right now, I'll be like, doo-doo. And Job's like, that didn't need a horn. That didn't need a horn.
Oh my goodness.
No, it adds character.
It does add character. All right, everyone, you heard it best, right? Rowintheriightdirection.org. If you are in the state of Massachusetts, right, and you are looking for a therapist, I highly recommend Row in the Right Direction. Yeah, it's a great business owned by a great woman. So let me just that's my plug. That's my seal of approval right there. That's my endorsement. So
I appreciate it.
Becky, thank you again so much.
Thank you.
This has been awesome. No, seriously, like this was really good, friend, and we really love having you on. And of course, we wish you the absolute best, especially as you get ready for your other baby, your physical baby.
Yes.
To come through. No offense to Row in the Right Direction, but that one takes a back seat.
I prioritize the real thing, the human.
But we do wish you the absolute best, friend. I'm excited already. I already know your community and village is excited. Like already know. And expect a lot of coloring books your way.
As you know.
All right, everyone. Remember, be in tune. Peace.